Hi everyone. Today I want to talk about PDA. That's pathological demand avoidance. So PDA is often described as being a type of autism. Um, Basically, it's where a person will avoid demands, but like when we talk about demands, we don't mean necessarily like the things that other people are insisting that we do. When we talk about demands, we basically mean all the things in life that we need to do and the things we want to do and the things we have to do is basically everything. Um, and when it comes to PDA, when we talk about avoiding demands, it's it encompasses quite a lot. Um, I like to say that with PDA, it is predictably unpredictable because you never know what you're going to get. You never know what's going to be seen as a demand, how we're going to avoid it. It's basically like it could be anything. Like I'll wake up in the morning and I don't know what things I'm going to avoid, what things I'm going to be able to do, how I'm going to avoid doing things. It's like tossing coins onto a board and hoping you hit the middle target. Basically, with PDA, the way it works is our brains are different. It Our brains are kind of like overactive in that the part of our brain that is responsible for recognizing danger and then keeping us safe from that danger, it is overactive. It thinks everything that we try to do is a danger. So, if, for example, it's when it comes to demands, it's not the demand itself, it's the action that's the demand, basically. So, for example, if I was to try and pick up a cup, my brain might see picking up the cup as the demand rather than the cup itself. It's not the cup that's the demand, it's the action of picking it up. Equally, if I was to see a cup and think that needs picking up, if I try to pick it up, then that will be the demand and I won't be able to pick it up. But if I see a cup and think, wait, I've got confused, and think like I mustn't touch that, it's hot, then it will be the not touching that's the demand. Okay, that's probably a bad example. Okay, so you've got some cake, and someone could say to me, "You're not allowed to have any of that cake," and then my brain will be like, "You have to have that cake." Whereas if somebody gave me cake and was like, "This cake's for you, I want you to eat it," my brain will be like, "You can't eat that cake." So it's not the cake that's the demand, it's the action. Whether that action is eating the cake or not eating the cake, my brain will tell me to avoid it the same. So when you think about it, during the day, there are so many actions that we take. We're not just talking about like the big things like answering emails or like tidying up. We're talking about all the little things. So, like when you wake up in the morning, the first thing you're going to do is open your eyes, and that's an action. And then you might sit up, and that's an action. You might pull the covers off you, that's an action. You might stand up off your bed, that's another action. You might start walking, another action. You might open your bedroom door, that's another action. There's a lot of actions. So, for example, when someone says, my child is avoiding brushing their teeth, brushing your teeth is a demand, actually, it's more than that. You're talking about a lot of demands in the whole demand. So when they're saying, oh, my kid's avoiding brushing the teeth, It could be that they're actually avoiding going into the bathroom to brush their teeth. It could be that they're avoiding picking up the toothbrush, or they could be avoiding putting the toothpaste on the toothbrush, or they could be avoiding the actual action of brushing the teeth, or they could be avoiding washing the toothbrush afterwards and then putting the toothbrush back. They could be avoiding all of that, or it could be just one specific thing. And there are some parents who they'll get the toothbrush and they'll put the toothpaste on it and they'll give it to the child or put it in front of them, which is basically eradicating a whole bunch of demands for them, making it a lot easier for the child to just brush their teeth, because then it's basically just pick up the toothbrush, brush your teeth and put it back down. That's 3 demands. Whereas if you have to go upstairs, open the bathroom door, go in the bathroom, pick up the toothbrush, put the toothpaste on the toothbrush, put the toothpaste back down, brush your teeth, wash the toothbrush, put the toothbrush back, then leave the bathroom, that's a heck of a lot of demands. I don't even know if you're allowed to say heck on YouTube. But no. So yeah, basically, one of the strategies for PDA is removing any unnecessary demands. So like removing a whole bunch of demands involved around brushing your teeth would make it a lot easier for someone to brush their teeth, because you've got rid of a whole load of demands. So yeah, it's the action that's the problem. You might have a child who has sensory adversities to brushing the teeth added on to the PDA, which would make it so much harder. Whereas you might have a child who absolutely loves brushing the teeth, would sensory seek to brush their teeth, but they still can't brush their teeth because it's a demand. And this is how much PDA affects our whole lives. It's not just the things we don't want to do, it's the things we do want to do as well. And it's our whole basic needs as well. Things like eating and sleeping and using the toilet, all of those things. But it's also our hobbies, our interests, all the things we want to do. And quite often the barriers to being able to do things are the added extra demands on top of that. For example, if I wanted to read a book, because I really like reading, that's one of my hobbies, but then I would need to go and choose a book, pick it out, sit down, and then open the book. And those are added demands on top of the actual reading of the book. And if one of those demands is too difficult for me to overcome, then basically I can't do my hobby. Say I can't walk up the stairs at the moment because that's my brain just won't let me overcome that demand. Then I can't do my hobby, basically. And for some things, it's not that bad. I mean, if I would want to read a book, that's only like 4 or 5 demands. And like when you finish with the book, you just put it down wherever you are. I mean, you can just leave books anywhere. It's not that bad. But when it comes to things like if I wanted to do some painting, I would have to dig out all of the paint and clear table space and get it all set up and get the water and stuff. Then after I painted, I would need to tidy up and put the things away. So those are added demands that make it harder. So yeah, I mean, I don't have anyone that can just come into my house and set up the art things for me and then tidy it up afterwards, because I can't leave it out. I've got kids. They paint all over the walls. So yeah, so I don't tend to paint very often because like the demands of getting all that set up and putting it away and everything is just too much. So with PDA, it affects your life so much, but there are strategies that you can use to help you. A lot of people figure out strategies as they're growing up, and I've done that a lot. So, for example, some of the strategies I use is that I will tell myself to do the opposite of whatever I need to do. So, for example, if I need to wash the dishes, I will say, I'm not washing the dishes. Nope, not going anywhere near those dishes. I'm not doing it. I'm staying really, really far away from the dishes. And my brain will be like, no, you must go near the dishes. It's really bad for you to stay away from them. It's really bad for you to not wash the dishes. So then I'll be able to do it. Or I might use role play. So I'll use my imagination, and I will I forgot what I was saying there. I'll use fantasy, so I'll pretend maybe that I'm on a TV show and I'm being filmed and I'm an actor who is washing the dishes as part of the play. And it sort of tricks my brain into thinking that what I'm doing is not real. That's quite good because, like, my brain's like, oh, this is fake. There's no danger here because, like, it's just imagining this is happening. It's not real. Because that part of the brain is obviously not very clever if it thinks doing everyday things that I've done a million times before is dangerous. Like, I could pick something that's really not hard. If I were to write my name, I've done that like a bazillion times. I know that writing my name on a piece of paper is not dangerous. There's no danger in that. It's just a normal thing that I've done a million times before. But then sometimes my brain will be like, no, you can't write your name. That's really bad. That's dangerous. Avoid. And it's just like, so yeah, that part of the brain is not very smart, which is good because that means that you can then trick it. I mean, it's not good because if it was smart, then it wouldn't make us avoid things that aren't even dangerous. So I can trick my brain. Like, I'll be like, I'm not writing my name. I'm pretending this is fantasy land. None of this exists. So then it's like, oh, right, it doesn't exist. You can write your name because this isn't really happening. So, yeah. Other times I do this thing that I like to call flooding. Basically, I throw like as many demands at my brain as possible. So, like, I'll be like, right, I have some time and energy, so I need to do some housework. So then I'll basically be like, right, brain, we need to tidy up, we need to hoover, we need to clean the bathroom, we need to wash the dishes, we need to go and put the rubbish outside. And I'll just throw loads of demands at my brain, and it'll be like, oh my God, all these demands, all these actions, you must avoid this, you must avoid this. And it'll be like, it can't avoid all of them at the same time. Some things slip through. And also, like, because my brain seems to find not doing anything as a very big demand. Like, I find it really difficult to rest and not do anything because my brain's like, no, you must do something. You can't sit down and do nothing. That is bad. So I use that to make my brain let me do things. So I'll be like, right, we can sit here and do nothing, or we can wash the dishes, or I can hoover up, or I can tidy up. And my brain's like, no, you can't tidy up. No, you can't sit down and do nothing. Those are bad, really, really bad. You must wash the dishes. Okay, I'll wash the dishes then. Oh, no, really, really bad. Don't make me wash the dishes, no. And it's just a way of, like, sort of manipulating my brain into letting me do stuff. The way I like to think of it is, imagine you've got a really, really overprotective bodyguard who basically flings their arms around you every time you try to do something. So you're like, I'm thirsty, I'm going to get a drink. And the bodyguard grabs you and is like, no, that's bad. So every time you try and do something, the bodyguard's there. So then what you're like doing is like sort of aiming it somewhere. So like, oh, I'm going to go outside and run down the street. And the bodyguard's like, no, no, and tries to get in the way and stop it. And I'll be like, going in the opposite direction, doing something else, sneakily. And then it's like, it's too busy focusing on stopping me from running outside. It doesn't see me eating some food, basically. Other times, like the fantasy, and the bodyguard will be just sat there thinking, oh no, she's just daydreaming, it's not real, and I'm actually doing stuff. It's little things like that sort of try and trick my brain. Another one is that because the bodyguard, that part of my brain, it's a bit slow as well. So sometimes when I think of an action that I need to do, we'll use the example of washing up. That's a terrible example. Okay, say I get an email on my phone. If I click on it straight away and then reply to it straight away, I can do that because the brain's a little slow. So the email will come up, and if I don't reply to it straight away, it's given my brain time to process it and realize that it's an action, and then it'll avoid it. Whereas if I react to it straight away, it doesn't see it as an action because it's still processing the whole thing. This is why novelty works so well with PDA, because it's new and it confuses the brain, and it gives us a bit of time to do stuff before it realizes that it's an action. Especially if we're so busy doing so many things that it's like it has a lot of things to process. I'm quite a busy, active person. I do a lot of things. My brain is like going a million miles a minute all the time, thinking of things all the time. So I think it's hard for that part of my brain to keep up. And I capitalize on that. And I use the impulsivity to do things before my brain tries to stop me. And that works quite well for some things, especially like things that don't happen every often. So it doesn't work with like washing the dishes, because that's something I do a lot. It's a regular demand, so it recognizes it. So when I try to wash the dishes, it's like, hold on, I recognize this. That's dangerous. Whereas if I went into someone else's house and I thought, I'm going to wash these dishes, my brain will be like, hold on, what's going on? Where are we? What is this? I don't understand. Hold on. And I'm like, no, I'm not waiting for you to realise this is bad. I'm taking action straight away. So that's why novelty works so well. And it's even little things like changing the colour of your toothbrush that confuses that part of the brain. It's so silly, but it works. So little things really help. Like even with washing the dishes, if I were to get new plates or new cutlery, that might confuse my brain just enough that I can wash the dishes a lot easier than normal. Another trick I use is to not think about things, because I've noticed the more you think about the action you want to take, the more it recognizes the action and sees it as a danger. So if you don't think about the things that you want to do, especially if you distract it by thinking of something else, it makes it harder for it to recognize it, and it makes it easier for you to do it. So if I want to wash the dishes, I'll put music on and start singing along to the music, and my brain's too busy focusing on where's the danger in the music to realise that I'm trying to wash the dishes, and that makes it a lot easier. It's just like things like that. If I use like 2 or 3 strategies at the same time, then that's basically how I do my day. Is I just use lots of different strategies all the time, try and keep things flowing, keep confusing my brain, try and do new things and a lot of things at the same time, while also pretending that I'm not doing things and distracting myself and pretending it's not real. And I mean, it's exhausting. Sometimes you just want to get up and do stuff, and then you're like, well, I can't just get up and do stuff because my brain's not letting me get up and do stuff, so I have to trick it. And it's just, so it wears you down, and it doesn't always work as well. So then you have to sort of accept the times when you can't do stuff. I mean, I think I'm kind of used to it now, but it is kind of hard when you think about it. Because PDA is a disability, because it stops you from doing the things that you need and want to do. And you have to put more effort into being able to do the things that other people find easy. So it really does affect your whole life. It's not something that like comes and goes as well. I mean, yeah, it does vary a bit. I mean, some days I'll find things aren't as much of a demand as other days. It does, I mean, PDA varies so much. I mean, yeah, you get things that can be a demand nearly all the time, like ironing. It's very rare that I can manage to iron clothes. But also you get, like, you might struggle to brush your teeth for weeks, and then one day suddenly you can do it. And like, you're like, what's changed? Nothing's changed. Why can I suddenly do it now? It makes no sense. But that's just the way PDA is. It doesn't make sense. Usually I find it's because you're avoiding something else. For example, I've had to make, I've been needing to make some big phone calls that I really don't want to do, and really hard. I mean, phone calls are like up here in terms of demand. And I've found it a lot easier to do other things because that demand of making the phone calls is always there in the back of my mind. And it's like my brain keeps latching onto it, thinking, no, don't make the phone call. So it just makes everything else a bit easier. And like, it means you don't, if you use a big demand like that, it makes it harder to do the big demand, but it makes everything else easier. And I think it's worth the payoff. Sometimes it depends what the demand is, really. If it's something that's not like life-threatening, then I think it's worth the payoff. It does make certain demands harder, but it also makes other demands easier. So, you know, I kind of have to accept that there are things I'm not going to be able to do. And that's just, I mean, it's a disability. So, yeah. So yeah, basically, like, with PDA, I mean, I think a lot of people don't realise, like, non-PDAers who are on the outside, they don't realise how much it affects our entire life. Like, if you were to observe me going about my day, you'd be like, oh, you don't really avoid many demands, do you? You can actually get on with your life and do quite a lot of things. I'm like, well, no, actually, the demand avoidance is internal. It's like fighting my brain all the time. I use a lot of strategies, and people don't tend to see that. But also because I don't have anyone around me pushing me to do things all the time. So like, if I can't wash the dishes in the morning, that's fine. I don't wash the dishes. There's no one standing in the house going, well, you need to wash the dishes. So then, like, that makes it so much easier. So then you don't see the demand avoidance because I'm not avoiding other people's demands. It's not as obvious. There's less pressure. So then, like, if you just see me doing the demand, washing the dishes in the afternoon, you'll be like, oh, well, you did that demand. Was a problem. And the problem is I was trying to do it in the morning and I couldn't. And that I had to use a lot of strategies and I had to avoid other things in order to do the demand in the afternoon. But you don't see that because it's all internal, it's all going on up here. Whereas I suppose when you've got someone physically, well, maybe not physically, but like verbally pushing you to do a demand, then you tend to see the avoidance. Because, like, if I have people trying to force me to do things, I'll come up with excuses for why I can't do it. I'll use distraction techniques, I'll delay it. I might start getting really upset and kicking off and things. And you can see those. But when it's me that's pushing them, when it's me that's pushing myself to do demands, you don't get the external behaviour because I'm pushing myself in my head to do it. So it's less obvious. But it's still avoiding it. I'm still fighting that fight. It's just invisible. So yeah, I think people don't realise just how much of a battle is internal. And you sometimes get parents being like, oh, my kid keeps avoiding things by like running away. But then they were able to do this demand. Does this mean they're not PDA anymore? Or that I got it wrong because they were able to do this demand once? And like, no. And I don't think they realise, I think they think that the demands are only the things they are making the kid do. They don't realise that every single action we take is seen as a demand. So then they can't see their child avoiding picking up things and walking and going through doors and listening to people because those are going on inside their head. So they don't see it as much. So then they don't realise the depth of how like all-encompassing the demands are. They don't realise how much we avoid all the time. So I think it's definitely a learning process. I mean, there are plenty of PDA people who really struggle to understand their own PDA because it's not very well explained and it's difficult to understand. I think it's only when you start to really look at your whole life that you realise how bad it is. So yeah, it's definitely one of the harder disabilities to understand because, I mean, it doesn't make any rational sense. It's not that people focus so much on the behaviours that they don't realise how much is going on internally. I mean, when professionals are like observing children and like being like, we need to figure out why they're doing this, they don't see the internal battle that's going on inside their heads. When you try to explain it to other people, like when you're PDA like I am and you try to explain it to other people, it's so hard to describe, and then you have to understand it yourself before you can explain it to other people. And then other people, non-PDAs, they don't understand it. I think because our brains are so different that they're trying to understand it from their point of view, from the way that their brains work, and they don't get it. I think that's why a lot of them believe it's an anxiety problem, because it's the only way that makes sense to them. But it's not. And it's like trying to explain what it's like being a horse to a fish. A fish is not going to understand what it's like to be a horse, and a horse is not going to understand what it's like to be a fish, because the worlds and experiences are so different that they're just not comparable, really. So I can understand how so many parents and professionals struggle to understand PDA. I mean, we struggle to understand it ourselves, and we live this way. So yeah, it's definitely difficult to get your head around. So hopefully this video has helped explain some of that. I'm gonna have to stop talking now because my voice is going. So I hope that was helpful. I'm gonna try and do some more videos, and just like kind of, whatever helps people, because the more we know, the more we can help. So yeah, so thank you for listening. Goodbye.